Good morning, this is Robert with Pioneer Smokehouses, and today we're gonna do a half pork shoulder in my brand new Char-Griller Smokin Pro. Now I went ahead and I did a couple of things this morning while it was nice and cool before I got it lit here. And first thing we're gonna talk about is inside here. I took a couple pictures. It turns out that the grill grates that fit inside the firebox where we burn our charcoal or wood are the perfect size to go down into the bottom of the grill and support the charcoal grate in an upside down fashion. Now the charcoal grate is like a bin and it's flat and curved, and so what we're going to do here is we're going to push it flat against the side so that way it will carry the smoke and heat through the unit. I took a couple of pictures. First, you'll see this picture with the two grates down in the bottom. Second, you'll see the picture with the charcoal bin down in there, upside down from its normal position. Now then I slid it all the way over, and I didn't grab a picture of that, but I just wanted to close that gap up. Now if it falls off of those bolts, then it'll just go back down. I might replace one or two of those bolts with longer ones, especially like the one right about here and right about here, and then that way it'll give it something more substantial to rest on this end. And then of course the grate will still be underneath it in case it slips, and that way it can't come down all the way. A future thought might be to drill some holes in this to disperse some of the heat evenly, but we'll see how it cooks before we worry about that, because we have a gap all the way around on all sides. So as it fills with smoke and heat, that smoke and heat could escape out at the sides. And the only way to know that is to do some temperature tests. And for today, we're just going to use this and put it in the grill mat next to it. Now I have two probes that come with this, and I just brought the one over here for right now, but we'll get that figured out later. So now I'm going to show you a picture inside the firebox here. And I basically ran what I would call a charcoal snake. It's kind of a horseshoe, but then I just stacked one more row on the top here. I don't know if you can see that, but I thought, you know, after yesterday's run that it just wasn't quite hot enough for what I was going for. Then I took and threw 12 briquettes in here and got those lit. So they're just about ready to go. You want to make sure that when you're doing this, that these things are rip-roaring. So when I lit them, I didn't want to overlight them. The propane grill, which is where I light this, is right next to the house, and I kind of just get it until it's going, and then I set it aside and let it get completely burning the way I want it. And we're really close here. We want them burning a little bit better, so we want to see white all the way around the charcoal to know that that's happening. And we just aren't quite there. The bottom ones are, but the top ones still need a little bit. That's like 4th of July. You shake it up good, you get some sparks. Boy, it's really close. We're gonna take a 1-minute break here, and then we'll be right back. That break worked out perfect. We'll just call it a coffee break. Let's set this aside. So the charcoal briquettes are going great, and I have my old beat up used pair of tongs, and even these ones are just about on the end of their life. They're just getting a little soft in the metal fatigue there. So I'm just going to take these and lay them in there one at a time and get them exactly where I want them. I left a little gap where I was going to light them so that way I can get a lit one right over that gap to get oxygen. And then it's going to get real. Now I try not to load the charcoal right up against the edge because I want to create good airflow. But with the ones that are already lit, I'm not quite as worried about that. They're going to start burning away from the edge real fast. I'm also trying to lay them on their side so that way the fire will start working straight up. And that's pretty good. I only dropped one down at the bottom of the grate, and you can't really get that one back. So I'll set this down in a spot to cool. Now it's going along pretty good, but I have a little trick for you here. And we're gonna go ahead and do this. And then I have a yard blower here. And this is how I get the fire going really well. And if I find that I'm not getting the airflow or heat that I want anytime during the cook or when I'm lighting a new piece, I'll just add a little airflow. But for you, you could use anything, and I would really recommend either a generic heat gun. You could buy one at that cheap store that has tools, but I will try to find one that is similar and put it in the description. I had one of those and it got stolen, so I replaced it with a really nice Wagner heat gun that I don't normally bring out for this kind of thing, but I keep a yard blower for my front porch handy all the time. And it has a low setting. So I just come over here and just an inch away from the bin and in the top hole, and I slowly blow air in there. That gets those charcoals going really well. And the reason is because as they smoke, they tend to smother themselves inside the box and they need oxygen to burn. That's why I always leave the vent grate open unless I have some kind of temperature problem. I think personally that temperature is a function of how much fuel you put in, not how much air you let in. If you put too much fuel in, you'll have to close the damper to prevent it from burning fast, and then you'll get dirty smoke. So if you can leave the air intake damper and the out open 100% all the time, you will get better airflow and better smoke, which will result in better tasting barbecue, and that's really what we want here. So we're going. I'm going to take another look in here before we move on. And those are burning right along. So I think we're in lighting stage. It's going to take a while for them to get moving into that, and that's why I wanted to get that done real quick. So yesterday I picked this up at the local grocery store, and what it is it's a pork shoulder blade roast. It's also known as a Boston butt, and this is one of the rare times that you actually see both on the label. It wasn't very expensive, and this is a real fatty cut, and I like to use these in smokers to season them in the first couple smokes, and they work really well in vertical smokers up near the top shelves, and then you just kind of keep the heat low and let them run really long. And the reason is not only do you get the good flavor from the pork, but the fat tends to spread around your smoker also. Now we're just going to go ahead and let this heat up, and we'll watch the temperature. And while that's happening, I'm going to take this in the house and I'm going to prep it. I will take some pictures and bring them back to you. So I've got the pork shoulder all trimmed and seasoned, and there wasn't a lot of fat on it. So I went ahead and just trimmed that off a little bit. And one thing that I like to do is run my fingers through it and search for any really hard fat. And if there's hard fat, I like to eliminate that, just like you would with a brisket or any other cut. But if it's really soft fat, then anything less than 1/4 of an inch is going to render really nice, and I think it eats pretty well too. Also, if you want to, you can salvage the fat for other uses, but I usually don't do that. I usually just use bacon grease for anything else I need fat for. Now, the smoker is running along really well, and I don't know if you can see this, but the smoke is pouring out, but our heat is not where we want it yet. However, we're going to go ahead and put this on there, but I'm going to do something that's a little different. Oh, that was nice to see all that smoke come out. So I'm going to set this here, and I'm trying to keep the smoker a little clean before I do any major modifications. I'm going to use this tray to raise it a little bit for two reasons. The first reason is so that way I can get this tray in there and I can get good smoke circulation around it, like that. And the second reason is it'll put us at a higher level, so we'll get better heat. Now, like I was saying before, is that I want to know what the temperature is in here, but I don't want to mess with the thermometer, so we need to put this in here so it's not going to touch metal. but it will stay in place. So I'm going to set it right there and then slowly close that and just drop that right there. And then that should be perfect. This one doesn't have a traditional hole, but there is some knockouts here for the rotisseries that if you wanted to, you could knock one out. Also, there's a couple of holes for the upper rack option, which this doesn't come with, that you could also do the same. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this, and I'm gonna let it run for a while and see what kind of temperature we're gonna get. Let's run through those pictures that I did in the prep. So first, we went ahead and trimmed the pork shoulder. Then I went ahead and put a layer of garlic granules on it, just a light one. I think that my normal rub, which is the 3211, does not have enough garlic for pork in it. And while I think it's perfect for brisket or chuck, I think that it needs a little bit more for the pork, and we don't want to add any salt, otherwise we would just add more of the rub. So I add one layer of garlic all the way around, and then a healthy coating of the 321 rub. When I do it, I do both of the faces first, and then I roll the sides onto the cutting board to pick up as much of the garlic mix as possible. And then if I find a spot on one of the larger sides, like the very end where the side is really wide, I will coat that lightly. The other end, the point end, I didn't add any additional coating to that one. I just kind of rolled it on the cutting board, and that was enough. So, and it's technically not the point, but it's the sloping side, and you could see it in the pictures there. So we're gonna let that run. We're gonna get an idea of what the temperature is and how it's going. The smoking is coming out great. We need to get this temperature up in an hour up to the cooking temperature. Otherwise, our pork won't make it through the danger zone in a reasonable amount of time, and bacteria could form. So we want to get it up into the 225 to 275 cooking range. And my target temperature for a pork shoulder like this would be 250, but anything above 225 for a long, slow cook will be fine. It just, you have to adjust your time. Also, if we get all the smoke that we want into this and we're gonna pull it, we could transfer it into a crock pot or even put it in the oven at a slightly higher temperature. And pork will handle that pretty well. Not like brisket. If you put a brisket in at a higher temperature and you don't inject it, you'll end up with tough brisket. So we're gonna go ahead and let this run, and I'm just gonna keep an eye on it. And if there's something to report, I'll get back to you. If not, we'll probably be back here in about 4 hours for me or a second for you. So I wanted to pop back in here and talk to you. I was kind of watching the fire. I added a couple of blocks to it, and then I opened the charcoal tray just a bit by just sliding it back about a half an inch so it would get more oxygen. And then I noticed after a few minutes that the temperature started to go up a lot. So I opened it up and took a look, and this is what I saw. So my perfect little snake has lit on both sides. However, on the plus side, we're at 234 degrees in the cooking zone right now where I put the thermometer. So that will put that pork roast at slightly above 250, probably right just above it. Now I'm looking at the gauge, and the gauge confirms the same thing. It says it's slightly above 250, and the gauge is located up near the top, so that's going to give you a reading of the upper area. That's why when I install the other gauges, I'm going to put one right here and one right here, so we get a good idea of what's going on. Now, because of how it's burning, I'm going to go ahead and put that back in, and just going to push that in a little bit. It was warm, but it wasn't hot. I just didn't want to take any chances there. And I'm going to crack this open real quick and take a look. It looks like the cooking area is just above 250 now, probably close to 260. It's not, it's an analog gauge, it's not digital, but this one's reading 245 where the probe is. So I'm just going to open that up and take a look in there. And it looks great, smoking right along, and it's plenty warm. So what it looks like to me is that I will probably be lighting some more charcoal in about an hour and getting it going again. But for right now, everything is moving good and it's moving towards that corner. So then I can reverse load it and load charcoal and burn it back the other direction. So if there's something to talk about, I will show it to you. If there's not, then it'll be about 3 more hours for me, 1 second for you. So we've been cooking for right about 4 hours, and since the horseshoe pattern charcoal snake didn't work out so well, what I've been doing is kind of a transfer from side to side. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures here that I took, and one, I loaded all the charcoal to one side, and once it was going and almost burned out, then I switched and loaded it to the opposite side. So I'm going back and forth. Now it's time to go ahead and reload again. So I'm going to go ahead and get some charcoal out. Now you can dump it right in there if you want, but what I like to do is I like to just kind of pour it out and then take it with the tongs and set it in there. I'm going to go about with 12 or 15 pieces at a time and then just continually reload it like that. Now the goal is that I don't want the temperature to drop below about 225, and we're just about there. If the temperature drops below that, then I'm going to need to start the charcoal in another device, in the chimney or in the grill, and get it going and then feed it into there. So I'm going to open this up now. Let's grab a picture. So you can see in the picture that we've got most of the stuff on the left side is going. So I'm going to transfer what's on the right side over there. So that way it's completely empty. And then I'm going to build a little pile on this side. And I'll explain it to you, and then I'll show you a picture. So you see here that it's almost shaped like a triangle, and you can see it kind of goes like that. And so what will happen is the middle will start burning those little single charcoals. Then it's burning already. And as it burns across, it'll come into the main part. And that'll give it a more stable temperature, because as this dies off, this will start taking over. Now I am going to add one piece of wood on top just for flavor. We'll just grab a chunk there and sneak it in there real fast. It is really hot in there. So I'm going to close that for a second. And then hold on right there while I go grab the other temperature probe. So I have the other temperature probe for my ThermoPro dual digital thermometer. And I like wired thermometers. I don't want to rely on anything else to break down. I would rather have something wired that I know is going to work, and I've just gone through so much of that. I don't like to use Wi-Fi controls and stuff like that. I prefer just to use it exactly the way it is. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. And then get that to temperature only. And so now it's sensing this probe. I'm going to go ahead and open the chamber really good here and get you a good look. And you can see how nice this roast looks. And I'm just going to see if I can pull a little piece off the corner. It tastes great. Get that closed again as fast as possible here. I'm going to roll along, and that'll probably be another 4 hours for me and 1 second for you before we talk again. It has been right around 9 hours, and we have an internal temperature on the pork roast at just under 160, and we're running just under 220 right now. At 220 right now, because I just reloaded it with charcoal. And I'll be honest that you need to stay on this thing really close. And I'm a little spoiled because I'm used to the pellet and all of the other fancy devices that we have that manages the fire temperature for you. So when you're looking at something that's a lot more user-friendly and easy, you might lean towards the pellet smoker or the Masterbuilt Gravity Feed series, because those digital controllers are really nice. I expected to have a little bit higher internal temperature by now, but I've been bouncing the heat up and down a lot, so I think that's probably the answer for that. And again, I'm a little out of practice now. We're just starting to settle in with a full burn here, and I'm just taking a little peek in here, and the charcoals that I just added are just starting to really light good. So they're gonna smoke down just a little bit less in a second here, and you can see that. So it's been about 12 hours, and we're gonna go ahead and wrap it here. I did not get as high of an internal temperature as I wanted, and part of the reason is because I was bouncing around a lot in temperature. Now, if I wanted to run another 4 hours, I could easily get it up there, but we're getting too close to bedtime, and I'm just gonna go ahead and stage it into the crock pot and put it on low overnight. And when I wake up in the morning, it will be perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and open this up, and we're gonna take a look at it. And I gotta say, it looks beautiful. So I don't know how well you can see that. Yeah, that looks really nice. Nice bark there. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slice a piece off the end here. Little piece with some bark right there. So I'm going to tell you that we're above 170 here on the internal temperature, but it didn't cut like 170. It cut more like 185. So it's soft. So maybe the edge piece is a little bit warmer, but so that's the outside from where I cut that last piece. I'm going to flip it over so that way you can see it. I want you to take a look at that beautiful smoke ring. Look at all that around the edges there. Man, that is great. Well, now all that's left is to take a big bite. I love the convenience of a pellet smoker, but that is way better. So good, and there's a little bit of that fat cap right there. That's just tasty. I'm gonna set this aside for a minute. So I'm gonna open this up, and I've been feeding it pretty regularly. One of the downsides here is that we have a lot of ash in the firebox, and if you take a look here, you can see that that thing is just full of ash, and so we're not getting any air circulation underneath. And dealing with that will be one of the challenges with this one. And so I'll probably do something to raise the grate up a little bit, so that way we can get the charcoals away from the ashes and get a better burn going. And that'll get better air circulation. I'll start by just turning the thing upside down and seeing if turning the grate over helps at all. And then if that doesn't work, we'll throw some fire bricks in there or something to kind of lift it a little. But the taste is phenomenal. Everything worked out just fine. I was really careful not to overheat the box. I did get it a little warm around here a couple of times when I was stoking it. But I got to say that, you know, after I get back in the habit of doing this manually, we might get it. And I'm going to get some regular splits of wood to go ahead and burn. I'm gonna see if I can get some pecan splits. It's not local to my area, so I'll probably have to order that in. But anyway, if you're interested in one of these, there's a link below. That is an affiliate link, so I will get compensated if you use it, but it won't cost you anything. If you want to read the full review, I did a review of my buddies a couple of years ago, and that whole article is there, and these haven't changed anything major. This one is the full model here. I believe it's called the E1224, and that's the one that the review is on. And I think I'll be making a couple of modifications to it. One will be the smokestack modification, and then the other will be to get a more permanent solution for the bottom here, and that could be part of the heat problem. But other than that, everything worked out great. So thanks again for watching, and have a great day.